But at the same time, I was just wondering why some countries are allowed to utilize their resources and some of them did become rich. Some are, even if they toe the line, they didn't become as rich as some countries. Like for example, I'm from Malaysia. I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like we are being allowed to develop our industries, our natural resources to a large extent at least. Is that, I mean, like, does the US or what do you call the Operation Gladio, the intelligence agencies and so on, they have specific countries where they want that country to become strong, for example.
I would suggest to you that the reason why Malaysia, so just through my research, obviously you're more of an expert in Malaysia than I am, but just from my research, Malaysia has always been aligned with the UK in some extent. So if you're already, and I'm going to use this word, even if it's offensive, compliant with this network and they know they can rely on you, then you're given much more autonomy than if you are steadfastly opposed to them. And you will not allow them to use USAID in your country. You will not allow them to infiltrate your labor unions. If you put a dead stop on that, you will be targeted. So I was shocked to know that all of the stuff that we did in Vietnam, the UK did a few years before that in Malaysia.
Oh,
They had used Agent Orange on people. They had did all kinds of atrocious things in Malaysia that was copied in Vietnam. The rounding up of people, dissidents that were opposed to the UK's role in Malaysia. I was shocked by that actually. I'd never read about any of that. And
I know
so
what is that timeline because this is brand new information for me. You're educating me.
So it would have been like in the 1950s because in the 60s we were already in Vietnam.
Oh, 1950s. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, I don't remember because I've I've read now over 150 books just on this topic.
Wow.
But the I want to say it was in Doug Valentine's book. He wrote a book called Operation Phoenix or the Phoenix Program, where he mentions a lot of the same techniques of rounding people up and tracking them and putting them in these new villages so that they could be monitored, had already happened in Malaysia.
Mm.
Um, so that was in full swing in the 60s in Vietnam. So it had to have been sometime in the 50s in Malaysia. And that's what's fascinated me about all of this is how much of our history has been suppressed, how much of our history that is out there if you search. And I would also suggest to your audience, if you have access to it, that one of the best websites that I have found is called Yandex. It's Yandex.
Mhm.
You can find, so in this particular realm of research, if you use any of the common websites like Brave or DuckDuckGo, or I've not used Google ever, but you won't find any of this information. You
Oh.
may get, if you actually have a name of an operation, you may get one or two
Mhm.
things that'll pop up. But if you type the same things in Yandex, there will be pages and pages. And the beauty of Yandex is they have a built-in translator. So all you have to do is click the language at the top and you can read um, newspapers from all over the world, which I find fascinating because obviously our news in America, coming from like the Washington Post and the New York Times, I mean, they didn't even print on what was going on in Germany until like at the end of the war. So you would have known nothing about, even though you can find other newspapers around the world having reported at the same time stuff that was actually going on. And that's true specifically about this topic. They do not want you to know anything about it.